What is up, everybody? Rob here, back with another episode of Punting and Pioneer here on Malta 5. This week, I got a pretty fun one. I'm calling it White Knights because it is a mono-white Knights deck. I actually played this at F&M last night, and I went like 3-1. It felt real fun. It didn't feel like as insane as Through the Breach or the Inverter decks, but I feel like it can go bigger than the traditional White Weenie deck that I was playing, and it's got a little bit more reach and token generation, and it can go pretty hard, and it's real fun. I like it. It's got a fun tribal aspect to it, as well as just being like a really fun White Weenie deck, and it's not very expensive in paper, especially not online. So we've got a lot of the same key pieces of White Weenie. We've got Brave the Elements. I'm playing 3 instead of 4 just because if you've ever played White Weenie and you just draw all your Brave the Elements instead of actual creatures, it doesn't feel that great. You really only want it like once you kind of establish a board presence, and occasionally just to kind of protect something important from a singular removal spell. But other than that, we're playing 4 Dauntless Bodyguard and 4 Venerable Knight in our 1-drop slot. Both really good 2/1 Knights. They both serve a good purpose. Dauntless Bodyguard, protecting your most important creature, also being a Knight. Venerable Knight being a 2/1 that then leaves a counter behind. So very relevant early threats. I've got the 4 Declaration in Stone, kind of White's premier removal at the moment. I've got 4 Knight of Grace. I was messing around with accounts, but yesterday I encountered a lot of just like green-black base decks or like Sultai decks, a lot of mono-black aggro, and Knight of Grace is surprisingly hard for a lot of Pioneer decks to deal with, so I was like, sure, 3/2 first strike that can't be killed seems pretty good in a lot of matchups, and it doesn't stay a 3/2 for long. We've got Thalia's Lieutenant, not the only non-knight, but one of the only 2 non-knights in the deck, but they both serve purposes as permanently increasing the size of your creatures. So every knight, with the exception of the tokens created by History of Benalia and Circle of Loyalty, are going to be humans. So you can make all of those knights bigger. You can make your whole team bigger. Almost everything triggers it to make this bigger. So it just seems like pretty much a requirement in almost all White Weenie decks, but also this one. We've got the full 4 Knight of the White Orchid, just because it's a knight, and it's a 2/2 first striker. It gets bigger. It just serves its purpose, and then also make your land drops. It's a really, really good addition. And the main reason to build this deck, in my opinion, is Worthy Knight. This card, if you've ever played it, can get out of control really fast. Your board gets really big really fast, and it lets you swarm. It lets your convoke spells be a lot easier to cast, so that's why I'm playing a couple Venerated Loxodons, because just you can get 5 creatures out easy, pump your whole team. The tokens also get pumped by Benalish Marshal and Circle of Loyalty, so it's not like they're just 1/1s the whole time. They're still somewhat relevant threats at the end. But this card just does a lot of work, similar to how like Hero Precinct 1 in certain decks can just pop off. Worthy Knight in this deck for sure can pop off. And then we've run in the full 4 History Benalia. If you ever play this in Standard, you know it can be very powerful. And if you can time everything correctly, last night I think I swung for like 36 on turn 5 or something, backed up by Brave the Elements. Or no, I think my opponent was just tapped out, so they weren't paying attention, weren't doing math right. I think this popped off, and I dropped this for 2 mana, and I just destroyed. So yeah, this is the main deck. Super simple, super cheap, super fun. The sideboard, pretty standard white sideboard stuff. You've got the Deafening Silences against the combo decks or the Phoenix decks. Got a couple Devout Decrees, just kind of a catch-all for red and black spells. And we got ourselves a Tormod Crypt here for Graveyard. I would be running Rest in Peace, but at the moment I'm kind of tapped out on funds, so we're going the cheap way. A couple Unbreakable formations against white-based sweepers. We've got 2 Fiendslayer Paladins, which may seem slightly underwhelming, but just kind of like the Knight of Grace against mono red and mono black, or just things that rely on black or red for removal. It just sticks around, and the lifelink is relevant in a lot of the aggro matchups. I've got 1 Conclave Tribunal, just kind of as a catch-all permanent removal, With Worthy Knight, the Convoke cost is very easy to achieve, so it seems like a little bit better than Banishing Light maybe in this exact build. And then we've got 3 Gideons. He serves a lot of purposes. One, it's like the best white planeswalker. It creates knights, which are also good. It pumps all of your creatures permanently, which is very good. And it's just grindy. One of the biggest weaknesses this style of deck has in Pioneer is black-based sweepers. So red-based sweepers you can get around with Brave the Elements because those deal damage, and you can give protection from the color. White and blue or white and black, things like that, you can get around with Unbreakable Formation and Indestructible, but black, stuff like Languish, stuff like the Expertise spell, I forget whose expertise it is, Cry of the Carnarium, stuff like that. It's just, there's really nothing you can do. Unless your creatures are permanently over however many toughness, your board's going to get wrecked, and it feels real bad. So having stuff like Circle of Loyalty, Venerated Loxodon, and Lieutenant, things that permanently increase the power and toughness of your creatures, is very important. So dropping a Gideon and getting that emblem it's pretty key in those matchups as well. And then just a 1-of Settle the Wreckage against opposing aggressive decks, against Soul Flayer, once they have a friggin' hex-proof double strike and lifelinker, having a Settle the Wreckage that you can occasionally catch them off guard with and just exile it feels real good. It's just a good catch-all. But that's it. This is the deck tech for White Knights in Pioneer. Stick around. I will have a couple gameplay videos following, and leave the comments, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching.